I know I'm sure you've been asked this. To take over that program and the expectations there, what do you foresee as the toughest obstacle?
Well, I think this. I mean, being a part of those expectations for a lot of years, that doesn't really. I don't think too much of that, just because I've been there
so
for quite some time. Yeah, so I've been asked that question a lot, and I understand it. I think the biggest thing is just establishing our program. You know, we have new coaches, there's new players, there's guys there that I didn't recruit or was a part of. Our conference has changed and gotten better. Coaches have changed in our conference. Our team systems have changed. Our facilities have changed. You know, just embracing all those things. But then we have to establish ourselves as a new team, a new program. And so spring ball was good. Summer, the new rule really helped us to be out there and be around these guys. But we still have a long ways to go through fall camp, and we'll still be establishing that throughout the season.
A lot of people in your spot will say, I mean, it's better than the alternative, whereas programs that haven't won or there's apathy and you're trying to build that, you're just, I guess, maintaining excellence and trying to.
Yeah, there's an expectation and a standard that's been set there. I would much rather come into that, you know, than trying to rebuild, because your players know that. But a little bit like we talked about, we embrace the past. You can go back and look at the success that Boise State has had. All right, now we can't just sit there and rely on that and say we're going to do it because it's happened. What are we going to do about it? So I really think from this point on, it's a turning point in our program to go back and now we establish for this staff and this team and teams moving forward, okay, what are we going to do? You know, what's our record going to look like in the next 5 or 6 years? What are we going to establish for Boise State? Are we going to have a chance to be in one of those playoff games when it's all said and done? So we have to take those expectations and reestablish them.
Are you feeling more pressure replacing Coach Peterson or replacing Jake Plummer in high school?
Oh, God, both sucked. I've seen to do that. You know, I replaced Dan Hawkins as the tight ends coach when he was the tight ends coach as the head coach, and so when he stepped out of that, I replaced him too. I just seem to have a trend of doing that. Both are tough. You know, I think this situation's a little bit easier because I was just the other guy when Jake Plummer left, so that's kind of how that worked out.
Did that situation, is there any way that helps you for this, or was it just too many years have passed?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I knew where I stood when Jake was there, so I just happened to be the fill-in for the next 2 years. But it's just kind of, I mean, it's kind of a funny story because of, you know, what's happened and kind of the way that I guess my path has gone a little bit. I laugh a little bit at those type of things. But we'll see on this one.
I mean, Coach Pearson was 92-12, and by the end, it wasn't good enough for some folks in Boise. I mean, is that unrealistic?
I don't think it's Boise, and I think this. I mean, football in Boise, Idaho is really important, and so those expectations. I mean, we don't shy away from that. I mean, I think that's a good thing. That might not be good at a lot of, you know. I mean, that's how it is, because he's won and the program has won. You know, those become the expectations that can be done year in and year out. And the reality of it is, it takes a tremendous amount of work to get that done year in and year out. You've got to have the right type of guys. You've got to have players that stay healthy. There's so many factors that go into it. I think one of the neatest things is how Boise State, during that period of time when Chris was there in particular, was able to sustain all those things with players, the expectations, reestablishing expectations after big years. You know, what can you do from you're undefeated? What can you do this? We can try to go undefeated again. That to me is the whole trick in this thing.
So are we going to see more of the old Boise State pro-style offense that we saw under Peterson, or are we going to see this is a question you probably get more than the second most question you get, or are we going to see the hurry-up spread that we saw last year?
A little bit of both. A little bit of both. You know, Mike Sanford running the offense and all that, obviously coming from Stanford. They had a way of what they did, which I really liked. We've had a philosophy when I was there that we did that I liked. A little bit different, you know, what they were doing last year. But it evolves. I mean, we evolved at Texas. We evolved at Arkansas State. So we'll bring those ideas, and there'll be a mixture of both. You'll see movement. You'll see tight ends. You'll see no huddle. You'll see huddle. We'll have a mixture of it. Ultimately, as we get through fall camp, you know, that's to be determined.
What did you learn last year in your first year as a head coach that was there one thing that stood out or something that you really want to bring up?
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it wasn't really scheme. It's people. I mean, that's the biggest thing. What I learned was dealing with people. that each and every day there's going to be 5 or 6 things that come up that you didn't anticipate, but need to be handled and need to be handled the right way. And the most important thing you got are the people and how you treat them, whether you want to do it right then or not, or you have something you really have to get done. That might be the most important conversation you have with that person ever, and to not forget about that. So, that's just how it is, just rolling with that. And really doing I think delegating, having really good people around you to where if you're not able to get to something, you got somebody that's going to be able to do it, and they're going to do it right and do it the way you want it done. So ultimately people.
How much stock should we put into the depth chart that was in the
I call it a pecking order. Yeah, about as much thought as we put into it. I mean, really, that's just, there's some things. There's some obvious ones in there. I mean, Matt Miller, Shane. There's some guys in there that are Dante Dion. They're going to be in that position. All right, we have players that have established themselves that are going to play, but for the most part, it's not. You see the Ole Miss game, that'll be our depth chart.
Matt was actually left off by mistake.
That's why I brought him. Yeah.
Hey, Bryan, can you talk a little bit about your secondary? You returned that whole group, especially in an offensive league like that. How big of a luxury is that, I guess?
Well, they're more experienced. They've been through some good things. They've been through some really bad things, and I think you learn from those really bad things in the secondary. What I'm really excited about, Julius Brown and Marcel Yates coaching those positions. And having Julius on my staff last year, got a chance to watch him. I mean, he's a chip off the old block from Marcel. And Marcel, I mean, we played together, coached together. I've seen his resumes all imprinted on me. So those 2 guys in particular are really going to help that group. But I think just the age, and I think just the year they had last year, I mean, statistically was not a great year in pass defense. All right, naturally the thing to do is to come back stronger, and so I hope that shows up.
Individually, they all have their strengths. Collectively, what do they do well? How do they complement each other?
Well, I think now, watching them, just communicating. And I think there's times where, Dante Dion doesn't need help. All right, so Darian Thompson doesn't need to help him, so he can go help somewhere else. And those guys communicate with each other that way, like, hey, I'm good. You need to go help so-and-so. Chancellor James over there, whoever it is, Brian Douglas. So they're getting better at that. Now that needs to show up in games and all that. It showed up in practice, but games are different. So I hope that's what shows up.
Yeah, I know you always talk about having a defensive back having a short memory. You want them to have that in terms from last season to this season?
Yeah, very much. Well, I'll say this. In a game I do, no, I want those guys to go back and relive and watch and look at, just like a quarterback, you have to have a short memory too, but you need to go back and know why this happened and know why you made that mistake or whatever the technique was, so you don't have it happen again. Our goal is always to make new mistakes.
It's been, all the good vibes and the hype and the excitement around, the changes and the blitz and the recruiting and all that for the last 7 months. Is it, sort of a feeling now that it's time to actually, go out and see what kind of product you guys can actually put on the field?
Absolutely. I think the off season is completely different. It's there is no game, there's no deadline. All right, you're implementing spring ball. There's no winner loser in that. Recruiting's big. You build a momentum for the season, and everybody's waiting for, all right, all this stuff that you've done, what's it going to produce? And that's ultimately when it comes down to it. We got 36 hours a year we get judged on, and that's what's most important for us. When we step out in that field, whoever we play, those 36 hours are the most important.
From what you've learned about your team through spring ball, through summer, what do you need to get done this fall? What this month you've got to prepare for Ole Miss? What do you need to do?
Yeah, we need to continue to establish our identity on all 3 phases. We need to keep creating toughness in our program, discipline, because we're going to ask our guys to do a lot of different things. And then ultimately in fall camp, I think that togetherness, that unity, that team, we need to have that as we go through the season. It's going to be a tough season. Ole Miss, starting off with them, obviously that's a tough game. They're very good. So we have a lot just from our culture standpoint that we talk about that we need to establish, because we had a chance to really all be together with them in spring. All right, summer, pieces and parts, coaches in, coaches out, but still being around them. And then we get in fall camp. I mean, that's the time you shut everything down, grow beards, and coach football and just hang out all day long. And that's what you do, and that's what those things need to be established coming out of there. And if you don't do it then, it's very hard to do it throughout the year.
You talked a lot in the spring about the run game and having some plays that we got to be able to run the ball effectively no matter what the defense does. And it didn't really work that way in spring ball. And how much is that an emphasis in fall camp to get that hammered out?
Yeah, same. I mean, we're not going to sit there and just beat our heads against the wall and all that. If it doesn't work, we're going to figure out a way to make something work. But I think any team that runs the football would want to say, no matter what, in this type of situation with these guys and this type of play, we have to be able to run the ball. Even if you point, and the thing, usually when you do that, you could go there and point it out because the defense knows exactly what you're doing. And then it just comes down to the one-on-one battles. You know, and to me, I think that's where the summer program with Pitt, all right, football is real simple. It's a lot of one-on-one battles. All right, how much stronger are we? How much bigger are we? How much faster? Things like that will be determined if we can do that or not.
With that being said, how do you feel about the offensive line and just, you have some newcomers and even the two guys back are in different spots? I mean, obviously they're going to be important.
Yeah, I feel like they're better. I don't think that our line is established yet, and it's more our fault. We need to get the 5 guys where exactly we want them. We changed even from the spring to what they did in summer, and then once we pick the 5, then we got to let them roll. But I do like, Coach Huff, we went through one year, we had 11 different combinations on the O-line. So he and I both know having one group, that's not really how it's all going to play out. So mixing and matching them and all that, as much as people want to say who are the 5, hey, we still have to do that because it's going to happen. It could happen in fall camp. It could happen in the first game. So, but when we do go play, we got 5. They know what to do. They understand the mentality I just said and go, and those 5 guys is going to be run behind you in a certain situation where everybody knows it, and you're going to have to get it done.
What do you need to see out of Grant Hedrick in August?
Consistency. I think that's the biggest thing. Just consistency, running the offense. I want to see him manage the easy stuff in the offense. I want to see him from a cadence, from a play calling standpoint, from an operation standpoint, that those things are worked smoothly, flawlessly, and it's over and over and over. And then the execution, the consistency and execution. If he, we're throwing the ball 50 yards down the field or anything like that, that's going to come. But it's all the other stuff leading up to that. We'll set those guys up for success in those areas. But the easier throws, the ones, the more manageable throws, that needs to happen consistently.
Probably the biggest question mark at this point on your whole team is that defensive line, and you're probably counting on some guys you haven't even had in a practice yet. So what are you looking for there this camp?
Yeah, well, you got Rondell and you got Antoine, now in the mix. You've got Kamale and Gabe and Sam McGaskill, Bo Martin. I mean, all those guys are bigger. They all look good. That to me, that's an area on the defensive side that if your D-line, if you have a strong D-line, the rest of it usually works out. It's really that simple. They stop the run and they get after the passer. So it's establishing that mentality with those guys. And I think physically we've gotten better. Now it's those guys really understanding how significant they really are to the success of our team. That changes everything. Now, I'll say this. Before them, they've had examples, some really good players. And I think Coach Caldwell is the perfect answer for him right now, in my opinion. I think his experience, he's been doing this a long time, he understands it. He knows the importance of them. He knows how to get to those guys. And I think his experience, to be honest with you, really is important for these guys because they listen to him. And that's the most important thing we need from him right now.
Is Ben Weaver finally healthy?
He is. He's not 100% right now, but he's running. And he looks better. He will be. He'll be, we're going to manage him a little bit in fall camp just because he hasn't done much. But 2 weeks into camp, he's going to be fine.
Was it a foot or something like that he hurt last year?
Yeah, he had a foot injury.
It's the same thing. It's just drug on all the way through.
Yep.
Anybody that's out at this point?
No. Everybody's... No. Everybody in fall camp.
Do anything with Bozen?
We've already done some things.
Okay. Is he eligible to play the first game?
Yep.
What about Derek Thomas? Anything you can say about him? He's no longer on the roster.
Yeah, he will no longer be with us. you know, we're going to try to help him and all that, but violation of team rules.
You let Joey go play baseball this summer. What went into
Yeah.
that decision, and how do you expect that to play out going forward?
Yeah, that was simple. I mean, I just looked at it from the standpoint, would I do it or let my son do it? 100%. You have a chance to go play. One, I mean, it's an opportunity that I think you have to take if I'm him, just so you know, whether it works out or not, just so you know. It's obviously a financial decision for him as well for the amount of time. I don't know what he signed, but he got money to go do that. I think that's a smart decision for him as well. And then ultimately for the team, it's real easy. I mean, if anybody had an issue with it, I'm like, who in here can play professional baseball? Nobody, that's right, so let's not talk about it longer. All right, so it's really that simple. And we'll get him back. We've already talked about utilizing him at fullback. You know, he'll still be in the linebacker mix and all that, but I think that fullback role for what we need to do and maybe where we could utilize him, I think is good. Yeah, he's back now. He's back and he's working out. So he's missed the PRPs, but he had been working out. He took a program with him when he went there in Arizona and was working out. I trusted that he was lifting and running and doing all those things. I don't worry about that with him. He's just missed, you know, some of that team. You miss some of that team bonding and different experiences that happen in the summer. You miss, obviously, the PRPs. You miss the meetings. You miss being around some of the coaches. So he has 2 weeks here to really catch up, and we're going to have to do a little bit more and accelerate him through fall camp. There are no 20-hour rules in fall camp. So, you know what? His time that he might have a chance to rest is going to be spent meeting or working on some of these other things.
The Cubs were saying there might be a chance that maybe you could come over and DH for the Hawks at some point. during
Maybe.
fall camp. Is that, would you be
Yeah,
open to that?
absolutely. Yeah.
If he gets his stuff done during the day,
Yep.
let him go over there at night.
Yeah, I mean,
Has that
we're
come
going
up
to
at all,
– it has not yet. But we're going to be, you know, we're going to be in a position to help him out. All right, I just think that's something for him. You know, that's a personal thing for him that we want to be a part of. Ultimately, I think that's what it's all about. You helping guys achieve their goals, and if that's one of them, then we're going to make it work.
Was he not allowed? Was he not allowed to play baseball last year, or did he choose not to play baseball last year?
I think he chose not to.
Okay. And the expectation that he'll do this going forward in the summers, he'll go away for a little while, play some baseball, and come back.
I don't know. I really don't. I don't know what will happen from this point on. You know, I don't know if he'll have a chance to go play more or not even be with us. Or he'll never play again. I have no idea. I really don't.
I wanted to ask a couple questions about your background. You guys probably asked a million times. From what I read, you called the Statue of Liberty play, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, and then folded my book and started walking out because it was over at that point.
What impact has that single play call had on your career, or is it overblown just because it's so memorable?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think the game. I mean, that's a significant game. It is for Boise State. I think it is for college football. I think that game, regardless of whether you liked either one of the teams, had an impact on college football. The call, I mean, I don't know about that. I think it's just the game and how it all played out. I mean, everything leading up to it all just maybe one of those perfect storms which it needed to be. And I think that's the fun part about that game. I think the impact, if like for Ian Johnson, but I do think for our team, I mean, the Statue of Liberty play and all that, we've been associated with it. The gadgets that went into getting that done, we've been associated with it.
You were the coach that had the balls to call that play in that situation.
Well, I'll tell you what, there would have been mutiny if I didn't. And the whole story kind of leading up to it, we were trying to call that and get to it pretty much at least halfway through the whole fourth quarter. We just couldn't get on the left hash because we had ran it once before. We ran against Idaho, and we had spent even more time on it. It's one of those things that you, in bowl preparation, you talk it up. And so I think at that point we had talked it up so much that our players were like, are we going to run this or not? And it got brought up towards the end of the game, and it's one of those things like, are we going to run this play? Because we spent time on it and blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't a two-point play. And so it had been talked about. And so as we got into that two-point situation, it was like, statue. And there was a no-brainer. Everyone's like, yep.
Have you ever practiced it in the tight red zone?
No, not in a two-point. We practiced it in the red zone, about the 20-yard line. It was about a 25. It's kind of a fringe play. It was about 25, 20-yard line because you want to rip one off, have a little bit of room. But not as a two-point play. And the other thing, too, in that game, we ran a break the huddle quick and throw a little screen out there. And I think it was Pease. It was Pease or Pete that suggested, if we're going to run that statue play, let's run it and hurry out of the huddle like this and do it just like that. And we hadn't done it that way. So we actually made that up and told our guys, if we run this play, we're going to run it this way. And so if you watch the end of it, we break the huddle, one of our receivers is on the ball, and right before he kind of steps back off, because we hadn't done it that way. So more of a credit, I think to me it's a credit to our players. When you go back and look at those plays, that one, they executed them, two, they executed them in that type of environment.
An in-game adjustment.
It was an in-game adjustment, and if you go back to the circus play, you go back to the 4th and 2 halfback pass, and then that one. I don't know if it's so much about the plays that really gets me. It's how well they were executed in that type of situation. I mean, all pressure's on, you're puckered up, and they go out there and do it perfectly. So I think it's more about what those guys were able to accomplish than anything.
Does that embolden you as a play caller, though, when that works? Does that give you more confidence in the future to be more aggressive and all that?
Yeah, because you see it work. Absolutely. And I think the players from that point on, too, would say, I want to be a part of that. I think they look at that and go, I want to be a part of a team that will utilize plays like that in that type of situation, or are going to allow me as a player to put it on the line like that. That's what they want to be a part of. And so, yeah, it empowers you as a play caller. I think it empowers you as a player. Ultimately, that kind of becomes part of who we are. It has to be, because, there's so much significance in those plays, and we've continued to utilize things like that.
You have anybody gray shirting on last year's class? Kakoa?
Correct, Keikoa.
Okay, he'll be the only one.
Yep.
Update on Antoine Turner. How did that? How's he doing
Yeah,
this summer? How
he's doing
did that all
good.
come together with him? And
Oh, yeah.
when did he get? When did he come in?
So he came in on he was on the 6th of June. He might have started the 9th. I have to go back and look at that. He might have been starting the 9th of June.
I know there were a couple of dates that maybe, did he get in the earlier of the two or the later of the two?
Yeah, I can't remember if it was him or Rondell. Rondell got in late. I think Antoine got in early.
Okay.
Is how that worked.
And you guys were able to. So you
I
guys
take
took care
that
of him
back.
for like a
I take
week
that
or
back. Antoine was in on the 6th.
Okay.
Rondell didn't get until the 9th because that's when classes started. But we were able to take care of Antoine
Okay.
leading up to that. And so, yeah, we had his meals. The whole thing where he was, so we ended up putting him in a hotel. The restaurant that he was in, which was an Irish restaurant, because he kept asking, he's like, hey, what are these things on the menu? And Red was like, that's a sandwich. So it was kind of a funny story there, but we were able to give him his meals and all
So he went to
that.
the same restaurant every day?
Every day had his 3 meals, yeah, so they got to know him. It was like Norm showing up in there. But we got him, we got him there, we took care of him, still taking care of him. And we talked about it. He's really not one to say that, that's my motivation or that's why I'm here and all that. Because I told him, I said, it's going to be a lot harder probably than what you're going through now when you get here, because you're going to graduate and you're going to help us win. Yeah. And you're going to work really, really hard to do that. And he's been doing it. So I talked to him the other day, and if you're around him, he's all smiles. He couldn't be more happy to be here. He and Rondell both are good kids.
Your whole class in this summer?
Jabril is not here.
Okay. Is
Not
he
yet.
Coming?
Should be.
Okay.
Yep.
Any issues there, or is he?
Hope not. Plan is to get him in, and I don't think his class ends this next week when it's all said and done. So he's taking the class this summer.
Okay. Like a high school class or a college class? Or?
Yep, high school class.
Something to get his eligibility taken care of? Was that something you knew going in, or something that came up?
Yeah, we knew about would be a possibility. And, sometimes things are accepted, sometimes they're not. And, it's happened, and it happens quite a few places. So he's got to take a class that will get him accepted, NCAA-wise and all that.
Is it, how much does that put him behind not being in that summer weight program and that stuff?
A little bit, but, I don't know at this point, in his position and where we are on the D-line anyway, if that's going to be something that's going to really impact him right now. This is more important.
Okay, so you don't look at him as an impact guy this year?
I wouldn't say that, because I know he's working out.
Yeah.
Is he working out maybe with the same intensity as we're doing right now? Probably not.
Right.
But the guy can play. And so when he gets into camp and all that, I mean, if he can help us, then yeah, he's an impact player.
You putting walk-ons on scholarship since you've taken over?
Well, Travis Saxton
He went on
was,
last year, right?
yep. So he's continued with that,
Okay.
and then
Nobody
we'll
knew.
see. No,
You were only gone for 3 years from Boise State, which is not a long time, really.
right.
When you got back there, was everything instantly recognizable and familiar, or were there changes that you had? Like, wait, I don't remember this. You know, I was wondering when you got
Yeah.
back.
Well, the new facility was completely, it wasn't even started when I had left. So that is completely new.
You had never
Yep.
seen it before?
Nope. I'd only seen it online and knew that I had bought a locker. That's about it. So paid for a locker in there. So I went and found that. No, that was a significant change. And then the people, too. You know, Mark Coyle, the AD, I did not know him before I left. So there was quite a few changes in there, player-wise and all that, too. So, yeah, I mean, in being gone and coming back, like, you know, if you've ever done that, I think you appreciate things a little bit more. So even just Boise, Idaho itself and the development that's gone on in Boise, Idaho, out in Meridian, Eagle area, all those things, there's quite a few changes.
You still have family in Boise, though,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
they were all there the whole time.
Yeah, me and my wife, both our family and siblings live there.
Did you feel like it was, when you went back and you saw that new facility, there was evidence of the legacy that you had helped create? And there was some satisfaction, wow, this is another step that we produced with what we did while you were
Yep.
there the first time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's all part of it. I mean, the success that the program's had is built the indoor facility. It's helped build the press box. It's helped build the football complex. So absolutely. I mean, that was something that, you know, was the next big thing to get done, and that it got done, and then being in there and looking at how it was done, you know, that was the neat thing. I mean, I thought they did a tremendous job on it.
It raises the bar, though, also.
Sure.
For everyone.
Yeah, I think, you know, but even all those things, I don't think whether we were in portables out there or not, and no locker room, I don't think our expectations would change. Not for us.
Yeah.
I really don't.